Ni hao. So I hope you've learnt a little bit about climate change and what's causing it and what's going to happen. There's a lot more to it than what we've gone through, but it's such a huge subject, so this is just a taster. But we already need to start thinking about how are we going to try and make these effects less? How are we going to try and stop climate change, basically? Well, there's a few facts to consider. Firstly, the warming we have today is from the greenhouse gases we put into the atmosphere about 50 years ago. That means there's a 50-year lag. So, the greenhouse gases that humans are putting out today, we will not feel the effects of that, the warming, until 50 years into the future. Which is a bit scary. So we've already done a huge amount of damage with the amount of CO2 we've put into the atmosphere now. But it's still not too late. The first thing we need to identify is all the different ways that humans are increasing the amount of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. There is a big, long list, and each one of us releases greenhouse gases on a daily basis. The most common ways is cutting down rainforests for putting our buildings and for farming, driving our cars and buses and all that sort of stuff. The other big way is what we eat. For example, meat. Meat releases a huge amount of greenhouse gases because if you think about it, to raise a cow, you need to cut down a forest. That cow farts, which releases methane, which is a greenhouse gas. It takes a lot of water and resources to fertilize the land, to keep the grass healthy, to feed the cow, and it's over a very long period of time. And then there's the processing of the meat, the transportation. There are some estimates that show that if you eat a lot of meat, that's actually worse than owning your own car and driving around. And of course, the things that you buy, the transportation, nearly everything you do releases greenhouse gases. That's the scary thing. But there are many things that we can start doing now, and we should be doing now. And I think the best way of actually figuring out what this is do your own research and make a big long list of everything that you can do in your daily life to minimize the amount of greenhouse gases. But I have to be completely honest, the only way that we're going to stop climate change is if the whole world gets together and makes an agreement to lower the amount of greenhouse gases. For example, if all the governments around the world decide to make electricity out of renewable energy, such as hydro dams, wind power, solar power, geothermal, there are many more. That way, that is not increasing the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere or greenhouse gases. The other way is if they advance technology, so make it cheaper to buy electric cars and biofuel, which we haven't covered, but you can search up biofuel. That's another way of lowering greenhouse gases. So all the big things, governments and countries need to come together and to help out. But the only way that's going to happen is if people understand what climate change is and what's going to happen in the future. So the whole point of these lessons is for you to understand a little bit about it so you can tell other people and start trying to figure out ways to lower your greenhouse gas emissions, which is not easy. Even myself, every day I'm thinking, oh my God, how much greenhouse gases is that going to be? And it's just mind-boggling. Like when you're in an airplane, huge amount of greenhouse gases are getting pumped into the atmosphere each time you fly. It's crazy. But it's the reality. We have to do something. Otherwise, my children, my children's children, the children's children's children are going to live in a very different world that will be very hard for them to live, and it will cause a world that is much harder to live in than it is today. And we don't want that to happen, because if we do something now, we can actually stop this from happening. It's not too late. So I'd love to hear about your ideas of how we could minimize it, how we can lower our greenhouse gases, how we can encourage whole countries to lower their greenhouse gases, what sort of technology could help. Any of your ideas could help here. There are no solid answers, and the sad thing is there's some countries that don't want to believe that it's happening because it costs money and it's inconvenient, and the effects are going to be way in the future. So old people are like, well, I'm going to die soon, so I don't really care. It's going to be the younger people that this is going to affect the most. So it's sad. In general, humans only react to things when there is an immediate effect. For example, if there is an earthquake or a massive flood, then everyone around the world sends in money and help and all this new education, a new way of building buildings, and we all change everything. But if it's a slow problem, humans take a long time to make change. And in this case, we have to stop emitting greenhouse gases now, even though we're not feeling the effects yet. So I'll be interested to see what you come up with. Oh, God.